feedback's being sought on proposed changes to the Fisheries Act, which Oceans and Fisheries Minister Shane Jones says are the most significant reforms in the sector for decades. Jones says the fishing industry generates about $1.6 billion in exports each year and employs 9,000 people directly. The proposed changes will remove unnecessary regulations. He says that impede productivity and the potential of the sector. Act's Ocean and Fisheries spokesperson is Mark Cameron, and he joins me now. G'day, Mark.
Hey, Leah, how are we?
Well, I have no idea what date it is, but otherwise I'm fine.
Sometime in February, they tell me.
Let's just go with that, what's in a day. Hey, Mark, we've heard there's a lot of red tape and over-regulation from the government in all aspects. Can you explain how currently the fishing industry is over-regulated?
Well, absolutely. And just a couple of thoughts. I mean, we've obviously got the cameras on boats reality. That was a rollout over now a series of years, and its implementation has been difficult for the industry to adopt. Arguably, it gives them information gathering, but how that data was stored and shared, and potentially, the privacy implications of that. But then there was issues in and around bycatch limits, especially for some of the mixed species catch. Certainly affected the coastal commercial guys more than the deep sea guys, although it was still onerous. And overwhelmingly, the industry found itself at odds with some of the proposals from the former government. Mm-hmm. Incidentally, there was a bill called the Fisheries Amendment Bill. Act was the only party to oppose it because of the onerous, I maintain, overreach of the regulatory burden that was going to disproportionately harm the sector. And if we have aspirational goals, Leah, of actually increasing revenue, export earnings, and giving people the tools to do their job, the way it was regulated, I maintain, was something of a nonsense and was harming the industry, not helping them. So moving forward, Minister Jones is obviously seen as an opportunity to create a genuine reform process where the industry is involved in that sort of that conversation, the discussion, the debate, as it were. What are the tools that you wouldn't employ, the methodology, so they can actually be good at their job, do it in a successful manner, acknowledging sustainability and environmental pressures, but equally get rid of the duplication and red tape and go back to basics. What are the costs, what are the benefits, and do the benefits outweigh the costs? Sort of yes or no.
Well, you've said, though, that there is an anti-fisher agenda and that the fishing sector has been stigmatised by, and I'm using your words, Mark, not putting it out there that you didn't say, by land-lubbing activists. And I wonder, though, is that a bit rough to say that don't we all want to see our oceans and fisheries fish sustainably? And does that make us then a landlubber activist?
No, not all and sundry, but some. Look, I think we've got to be clear. The industry has been lambasted by a small cohort of New Zealand that said, look, they didn't care about the environment, they didn't care about what they were doing. I just make a couple of observations, Leah. Many of these small communities that have these fishing realities in their backyard, up and down rural New Zealand, you can find, especially with the coastal guys, small operations that are operating out of small ports all over New Zealand. They were the target and the bane for a lot of the rec sector. Now, obviously, there is disparities and some disagreement between those two sectors on what and how the quota management system is run. So I do maintain that in some instances, some of that angst was disproportionately thrown at the sector. Now, a couple of reflections. The sector has worked incredibly hard over certainly the last few decades to, I maintain, clean up its act, be better at what it does, minimise bycatch. Now, a couple of observations have changed. Mesh design, they've gone from a 4 to a 5 to a 6-inch design. They've gone from diamond mesh to square technology and lead lines and sink lines. Really tried to alleviate mammal and bird catches. They're working really, really hard, these people. And especially in the coastal commercial space, they sell to a boutique fish market that so many Kiwis enjoy when it comes to their fish and chips or going to have a beautiful fillet at a restaurant. So we've got to help these people, not beat them up.
So you did mention, and Mark, I do want to kind of circle back to it about the amendments to the scope of camera monitoring. So we know that cameras were put on boats. Is that still a proposal that Minister Jones wants to maintain, or is he proposing changes to that?
It's my understanding that Minister Jones, in discussions with myself at my select committee and others, he was never a fan of the cameras. Now that they have been employed, and there's some 300 plus in various stages of operation, I think they will be maintained. The reality that they're now catching data and they're storing that data, and it's helping understand the state of the biomass and whether things are waxing or waning, as it were, in terms of the health of that biomass. I think that will stay as our reality.
Right.
But I think there needs to be some clearing up of the ambiguity around how that data is stored and by whom it's used because there are privacy implications, and I know the industry was concerned about that, especially that privacy element. And I just make a couple of thoughts in that regard. We all maintain that we go out and do our job with the best of intent, and having people leaning over you, sort of asserting at the risk of overstating it, are you a bad person before you've otherwise proved you're innocent? So this is the kind of thing that the industry has to grapple with. And I would, where I sit today, I think Minister Jones is unhappy with, perhaps the cameras being there, but I think he'll just live with it.